I often refer to it as like from an animal's perspective, they're looking up at the human like pig pen from Snoopy, from Peanuts.
Yeah.
It's just like this cloud of dust, and like the dog is like, "Well, okay,
Wow.
well, how do we clear this up?" Patterns keep us safe. We
Mm.
like patterns, we like expectations, we like the patterns contain us, and we like to know what's coming. But when we expand beyond the patterns, beyond those, limiting boundaries, that's where the growth really happens.
Nobody likes a bad dog till there's trouble at the door.
Welcome to the Vermont Dog Trainer Show, your common sense, down-to-earth advisor on all things dog training. Here's your host, Ian Grant.
Welcome to the show today, everybody. I've got Michael Burke with me. He is all the way out in the west coast of California right now, so a cool California to Vermont coast-to-coast connection today. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
I'm happy to join.
Michael is an animal communicator, behavior consultant, and also an intuitive life coach. I first met Michael out at the Dog Psychology Center out at Cesar Millan's place, and he is the meditation instructor out there as well. And I've sat in on a couple of his meditations, which were quite nice and peaceful and calming, relaxing, all that. And by the way, excuse me, I've gotten into meditation a lot more in the last 2 weeks, and I just can't believe the difference between my ears.
Good. I love that. That's the goal.
It is, right? So what is it that you find? Because I really we're going to touch on how, our mental health helps us out with our dogs, our mindfulness, our awareness, and whatnot. When people come to you, Michael, for work with their dogs or maybe some more awareness, I guess, what are you finding that people are asking the most of when it comes to their relationship with their dogs or pets?
I find people are wanting to understand how they can help their animals, how they can serve and support and provide for their animals in a way that's going to be nurturing, but also supportive in a way that's not going to hinder the animal. A lot of times people come to me when they are recognizing, all right, my energy is off, or I'm missing something, or I'm tense and stressed, and my dog isn't getting it, or even my cat, all of my animals, they're reacting and responding, or we're just not on the same channel, so to speak. And I want to correct that and understand them deeper, and to be more mindful of my own energy. Sometimes people don't realize the energy component of it when they come to me, so they
Yeah.
more are just like, something isn't working. I need help, and I'm frustrated, and I'm stressed. Can you help me clear this up? And so then I'll bring up, okay, well, how are you feeling, and where's your attention, and what's triggering you? What are you projecting, or what are you seeing in your animal when you communicate with them, when you ask them to do something? Kind of piecing it together.
Yeah.
So they're coming to the answer and conclusion on their own, rather than me telling them. If I need to tell them, I will. But
Yeah, but there's
kind of
growth in
leading
helping
them.
them bring it out, right? That's where the growth happens.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Guiding them, like lighting the path for them,
Mm.
essentially. So they're recognizing the path rather than forcing them down the path and then resisting it.
I like that term, lighting the path. That resonates a lot dealing with clients, because sometimes they may not know exactly what that path is to where they want that better relationship, but kind of being that guide to them, so to speak, which that's really what they want, right? They want that guide. Just show me what I'm supposed to do, and let me get there, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And then that will be like the first step, but then a big core of what I do and share and offer is the energy side of it, being aware of your energy and mindful of your energy and mindful of yourself with a capital S.
Mm.
Really recognizing what you are sharing and radiating, and what you're not. too, what you're not sharing and maybe not radiating, which could be a lack of confidence, clarity, intention. So the energy side of it, being mindful of how you feel, being in the moment, feeling really present, grounded in the moment, letting go of those old stories and the drama and the
Mm.
trauma, the woulda, coulda, shoulda, all of that. Like all of this stuff becomes a cloud. I often refer to it as like from an animal's perspective, they're looking up at the human like pig pen from Snoopy, from Peanuts.
Yeah.
It's just like this cloud of dust, and like the dog is like, "Well, okay,
Wow.
well, how do we clear this up?" And sometimes, just the human having that image, like, oh, I got this cloud of dust. Okay, I'm just going to take a deep breath and maybe shine a light down upon me to burn away the fog. That can help recalibrate themselves too. Imagination and creativity can be really, really powerful to connect into a feeling,
Mm.
and whatever it takes to clear away that dust and debris.
That's a great visual, Pigpen. Like that's the first thing that came into my mind. What we all remember that visual of the cloud of dust and dirt and following him around and everything, and that is a pretty powerful visual. That's amazing, and I'm sure that shines a light on it for people too, as what their dog is actually seeing.
Yeah, and even too, like Pigpen was like not a bad kid. Like he
Yeah,
was just a little dirty. And
yeah,
he's like, why won't anybody engage with me? And even like us humans, like our intentions are good. Maybe we hope to be helpful, but we're just caught up in our stress and our confusion and our mental spinning
yeah.
that it causes that kick up of dust.
Right, right. I think for a lot of people, energy is hard to understand because it's not a tangible thing. It's not something that they can hold in their hand. It's not something that is easily understood. I mean, dog or human to dog, let alone human to human. In a lot of cases, how do you define that to your clients as far as what truly their energy is and what kind of an effect it can have on their dog?
Yeah, well, often I'll give the example of like when human experiences, like when you walk into a party and it's like, oh, the energy's really good in here. I'm really vibing with this. Like this is really, really warm people. Everybody's friendly. There's just an energy in the room. Or it could be the opposite. Like when you walk into somebody's home or their space, or you're sitting next to somebody on a airplane or a bus or somewhere, and it's like, oh God, I'm just like getting this really weird feel like something about them is very suffocating.
Mm-hmm.
Most people have had that experience somewhere when I share that. Like, have you ever been around somebody and you're just like, their energy is off, or I don't feel them, or they're
Yeah.
cranky, or there's maybe it's a boss in the office and the boss is like saying one thing, but really like radiating something different. And it's like, okay, well, what is this? Is this passive aggressive? What do they want? They tell me it's okay, but I feel it isn't okay. Or with a family member, the tension, like sometimes between couples when let's say the wife is home before the husband and the husband comes home and everything was clear in the house until the husband came home, and then there's tension. All of these examples of energy amongst humans, I'll use that as an example for the person
Mm-hmm.
to feel in and like kind of latch onto that. And usually they're like, oh yeah, I do get that. I understand that. And then translate that toward an animal. Like sometimes you may be approaching an animal and you feel them backing up, or they gravitate to you. Some people will say, oh, I'm an animal person, and everywhere I go I'm like a magnet, and the dogs or cats all come out of the woodwork to me. Or like, I don't understand it. I'm walking, I walked into my friend's house and the dog was just like I was this force coming in, and the dog was backing away. They're just calling attention to these things, giving examples can help people be like, oh, I get it. I do understand that. That makes sense to me. And then as they move forward, they're aware of it more.
Yeah.
And the first step is awareness.
Yeah. I've had, sitting down with clients during lessons, and sometimes you get deep and you don't even, you're not doing anything with the dog at that time, but you're kind of digging deep into the relationship part of it. And you get out of that lesson and you walk outside and you're like, wow, fresh air feels amazing right now. And oftentimes after I say my goodbyes, I go back in the training room, put stuff away or whatever. And there's been times I've walked back into that training room and it just feels heavy in there. Just the energy, the air, it's just like, sometimes it hits you like a brick wall. And your examples are great, and I totally understand it, and I hope people listening to this can get a better understanding of it, because it truly is, when energy is out of whack, it is like a 500-pound weight on your shoulders, and even your chest and your head and everything. It can really take its toll.
Yeah, and like even too, as you're speaking, I was thinking about walking into a dog pound, like a city pound or rescue or whatever, shelter. And just the energy in there sometimes can be so intense and heavy. And people will feel that. That's another really good example. Like, oh yeah, I won't go into those places because it's just too much.
Yeah.
But that's why, because the energy and the sound. But it's a lot. So from a dog's perspective too, they're so tuned into energy, they're gonna feel that from us, for better or worse, and hopefully for the better. We can take the reins of that through intention, awareness, and guide ourselves, and in turn guide a dog to where we would like to take them.
And as much as we talk about energy too, because I'm sitting here thinking in my brain, there's almost like a push and a pull to it as well, right? Where some people are going to be more sensitive to it and probably soak it up. Other people are going to come off and be, I guess, repel it to a certain degree or put off a lot of energy, right? So how would somebody know where they stand with that? How would they understand energy in regards to that context with their animals?
I feel like it begins with, the first step is awareness of it. Just, it's almost like taking inventory on yourself, like assessing and evaluating yourself, your energy, and how others are responding to you. And so I would recommend to somebody like, okay, beginning tomorrow, just have an awareness, an objective awareness too. Just almost like you're kind of pulling yourself out of your body a little bit and observing how maybe the people in your house are engaging with you, your animals, like from an energetic perspective. How are they gravitating to you? Are they kind of rotating away from you? Are they just with an awareness of like, oh, isn't that interesting? No judgment, just awareness.
Yeah.
As you go out into you go outside, maybe you greet a neighbor or you're walking your dog. How are people responding to you? How are the animals responding to you? Moving through your day, just like I said, taking inventory and recognizing the energy, engagement, exchange. And it's going to change sometimes. Depending on our mood, our frequency, we might be calmer. And, it's like sometimes there are those days where you're like walking around and people are just smiling at you.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, and it's like, oh, wow, I feel like I'm just on a roll today. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I'm glowing today. Yeah. Or like, why did like 3 people flipped me off? Like driving. I remember there was like a few years, like 5 years ago, I remember I was driving through LA and there were like literally 3 different homeless people that at a stoplight that just like flipped me off and were like, okay, like, and granted, they're homeless. I don't know what their mental stability is, but I'm like, okay, what's going on in me that is, this never happens. Why are there 3 homeless people that are flipping me off? Is it maybe I'm like frowning and so I just was like, all right, just like check in with yourself. Maybe I'm frustrated in traffic or I'm irritated because I have to get somewhere super quickly. I'm late.
Yeah.
Or I'm like, second guessing myself because of something I did with my dog earlier or with a client earlier that day. I can't remember that situation, but just having this awareness of how, the energy exchange with others, um, so then we can shift it. So like that homeless example that I mentioned, I was like, okay, I'm giving off a frequency here that I'm not happy about.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't want to be like drawing that out of people. So I'm just going to smile a little bit more. Maybe I need to be just smiling when I'm driving. And it, not to sound cheesy, but like smile therapy is a thing. Like the more
Wow.
you're smiling, and just like even if you're not happy and you're just smiling, it's going to shift your energy for the better.
Yeah.
And I, again, that was a while ago. I can't remember what resulted, but I do know that, like, okay, I'm aware of the response I'm triggering in people. So I need to check myself.
I've recently had a couple come in for a lesson. They drove a couple hours to be here. As soon as they got out of their car, they said hellos. They both had a smile on their face, like ear to ear. And immediately you're like, wow, that this is great. This is good energy. And of course it's contagious too, good or bad. And we got going in the lesson, and the husband said, he said they were with a trainer with their previous dog, and he said, I'm pretty sure like she hated me. She was pretty rough on me. And he goes, so please forgive me because I'm kind of tiptoeing a little bit here. And I was like, dude, let it go. You guys have amazing energy. Like you're smiling. And of course the dog's in for a lesson too. If we're feeling it, the dog feels it too. But you just come across those people where it's easy. That you're in that flow, the frequency, as you say, and it becomes easy, right? That and it's supposed to be that way.
Yes. And just being aware of that, appreciating it. I find too, the more we appreciate those moments, those exchanges, the more we draw that to ourselves.
Yeah.
It's again very energy related, but it's like, oh, this is good. I like this. I am aligning with this. This is what I love, drawing into my experience.
Yep.
And then like synchronicities kick into gear where we start drawing more of that energy to ourselves. And on the flip side, if we're always like those people that always seem to have the dark cloud around them, and it's like, God, they just are very negative. They're always negative. And they just got a new offender bender, and then they just lost their driver's license, and then this happened and that happened. It's like, God, like this person just can't shake off that energy.
Yeah.
Because the expression is like attracts like. What we're feeling can attract more of what we feel.
I look at it. So when we talk about the awareness of being around our dogs, I think our personal space is extremely valuable to not only us, but to our dogs as well. And when I see people in for lessons and how much their dog invades their space without being asked, without being invited, and then also, of course, the dog understands, hey, if I just come over and lean up against them, I'm going to get petted, or I'm going to get a treat, or whatever the case may be. And I often find that a lot of those dogs are the ones that have the bigger behavioral problems. And so when you talk about awareness in personal space, I mean, how does somebody get control back of their personal space? Because that relationship it's not give and take. It's just kind of, it's take from the dog and it's all give from the human.
Yeah. Well, first, it's the intention of, okay, I am claiming my space. I am owning my space and feeling calm and confident about that, not questioning it, and also detaching from, we all say this in our world, you're in my world, live in the moment, be in the moment,
Sure.
let go of what's been happening, cut the cords, the energetic cords with what has been the story, and create a new moment, create a new story, live in the moment, and focus on what you want rather than what you don't want. And so often people are focusing on, it's like, okay, I'm claiming my space, but they're emitting an energy of the dog not like always in their space. So from the dog's perspective, it's essentially like, okay, you're wanting space, but I'm feeling me not giving you space. And so having that, I'll tell people, practice the vision, the feeling, and the frequency every day
Hmm.
of what you would like to create.
Wow.
Really connect into the vision, imagine yourself owning your space, calmly, confident, focusing on the feeling of you having your space, feeling good about it, your dog respecting your space, coming up to your boundary, laying down at the boundary, how your dog feels, how you feel, how everybody in the pack feels, and really just give yourself the opportunity to visualize that and imagine it. Because when you're doing that, you're starting to radiate that energy, that frequency for your dog to latch their caboose on to your train. And so it can be like training a muscle. You know, like I say this a lot, you could go to the gym and do bicep curls for one day and you're not going to have bulging biceps. You know, you have to just keep practicing it every day to shift this. So you know, like I said, just practicing every day. Okay, I'm in the process of claiming my space and I feel good about it. And we all feel good, rather than my dog is not coming into my space. It can be you know, a shift, an iffy thing. Like we don't realize we're almost negatively focused on when there's almost like the dog not bothering me, not coming into my space. That's a little confusing energetically
Yep.
for the dog. Does that make sense?
It does to me. Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback on it in a second, but it does. Yes.
Yeah. So I always say, like, be easy on yourself, you know, practice this, the vision, the feeling, the frequency of it, and feel good about it. And if you start to, it could be two steps forward, one step back, like, oh, we're doing well. And my dog always just lays down at my feet. And then I reward the calm. And then the dog started jumping up all over at me. And I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute. Now it's all out the window. Let it go. Just like come back to the moment. Doesn't mean that you haven't planted the seeds and the seeds aren't growing,
Right.
but you just have to keep nurturing and watering what you're planting and building and creating, and just like let it go, come back to the process. Very like rehabilitation train, you know, like just one step at a time, stay with it, there could be a setback, just get back on track, keep on going, no biggie. People are so hard on themselves, you know, and then they get caught up in their head and they're spinning again.
You know, so yeah, it's funny. It's rang in my head because a lot, you know, if somebody comes in for me and they tell me, well, first of all, they always come to a trainer to tell us what's wrong, everything that's wrong, which we do have to know. You know, that's a part of it. And I'll go, okay, so what do you want? And the answer is usually, I want him to not do this. And I'm like, okay, so you're focusing on what you don't want. What do you want to have happen? And that's when I get the deer in headlights look, because they actually haven't thought about that. They just go, and there's so much hesitation because they haven't ever, the way you just said that, the vision, feeling, and frequency. Oh my gosh. They haven't ever visualized what they truly want in their dog. So how would the dog ever know what to do, and how would that ever be successful, right? Like it wouldn't be.
Exactly. And not only visualize it, but also feel it. You know, really feel what that would be like. You being in that situation with your dog, your family, everybody, how everybody's engaging and interacting, and practicing that every day. Just allowing yourself a few minutes, or it could be a deep meditation. It doesn't have to be. I'll often tell people, like, you know, when you're washing the dishes or you're in the shower or you just have a few moments and you're kind of thinking or spacing out, take a few moments to just visualize and feel what you would like to experience with your dog and everybody together, how everybody's and just allow yourself to like daydream about it, because you'll manifest that.
So manifesting is another one of those words like energy, right? It's not tangible, but I like how you word that too, Michael, because I'm a big believer in people training their dogs, but I tried not to add on, you know, another half an hour of work or another hour of work on top of it, because people look at that and they just go, oh my gosh, I don't have any time for that whatsoever. But the practicality of doing something like what you're saying, visualizing the feeling of it in that moment and manifesting it. So what does manifesting mean to you in this context?
Manifesting to me in this context means the practice of creating what you desire, bringing your intentions to life, to really to bring your dreams into a reality, which can sound lofty and very inspirational, but it is a really powerful process that's very real. And I'll often tell people, like, okay, well, think about in your life, in any area of your life where you just knew you really, you just, I'll just use this example. You imagined yourself as a dog trainer, and maybe the person was in a different career and was working in an office, and they were like, I just am miserable. I'm working 9 to 5 and I don't like what I'm doing, and I'm not happy, and I want to be with animals, and I want to be helping people, and I want to be serving. And I just see myself really stepping up into a bigger role for others, and to really bridge the gap between a dog and a person. And I just see myself doing that. And I don't know how it's going to happen, but I just see myself doing it. And I really want to make that happen. That is a dream. It's a dream that then, let's say, it came true for that person. I'm just making this example up, but like, it could be in any area of your life. And for any person, just when did you dream about something and it came true? Or you just set your sights on something and it came to fruition? It could be in a relationship. I always hoped that I would find somebody, and now I do have the love of my life, or my children, or the house. These tangible material things or whatever are easy reference points. But people will be like, oh yeah, I guess I really did know that one day I would be where I am today in some facet of my life, and I made it happen. You're right. I forgot about that. And so that's like a process of manifesting, and people don't realize they're just doing, living, being, dreaming. But then when we recognize those points, those reference points in our experience, oh yeah, I did. Okay, well, I was able to create that. Okay, I'm going to put that energy toward my relationship with my dog, and focusing on getting through this and getting along, the dog's getting along, or the dog walking in the other direction when the cat breezes by.
Yeah.
And I'm choosing my words carefully, rather than like not chasing the cat or not misbehaving.
Right.
Just the calm surrender energy.
Yep. The what you want.
Yeah, focusing on what you want. So yeah, like, the word manifesting sounds very like lofty or whatever, but it also can be inspirational and very real and powerful. And from an energy perspective, there are a lot of studies, and I'm not going to go into like even the science or whatever, but there are a lot of scientific studies that are showing when we focus on something and we feel it in our heart, it's called heart coherence. Energetically, there's like this, we're like raising our vibration, our energetic vibration, to a level where we start to draw to a similar energetic frequencies and vibrations that are a match for that elevated feeling. And so, and there are techniques of like connecting in with your heart center and really connecting into something you love and the feeling of love. And it could be a dog or a person or experience or a place, and just feeling that love, and then bring into that heart center your intention, what you would like to create, and then almost like blending it together so as to jumpstart the creation of what you would like to create through that emotion, the love, and then imagining you're experiencing it now in your life now, like, and walking in the shoes of the person that you would like to be, so to speak. There's a lot of stuff, the work of Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and Dawson Church and Bruce Lipton. These are all well-respected people that have written tons of books on it and have the data in there too, which I highly recommend to check out. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Quick story about manifesting, and I didn't know what it was at that time, but I remember, so I grew up in Vermont, And I just always knew I was not going to marry somebody from this area. For some reason, I always had this feeling that it was going to be a Southern girl. I knew I wasn't going to meet the love of my life in a bar, and I knew it was not going to be in this area. Long story short, we met in 2005, and we've been married for 15 years. But and met in Florida at a hotel that we were both working at. So it's a feeling.
Wow.
For me, it was always a feeling, and a knowing, and I think a confidence behind that too, where you're just like, yeah, I know this isn't going to happen. It's going to be, and I don't even know where, but I knew it was going to be. The term Southern girl always rang in my head, and so it just, I think that speaks to kind of how you're explaining it here.
Exactly. Yeah, that inner knowing, which I heard you say,
Yes.
like it's a very just and following that feeling, just the inner knowing. Oh no, I something's telling me that just keep on going, keep on moving, keep on flowing,
Yeah.
and it'll come together. It'll work out. The path will be lit.
Yep.
For me,
Yep.
as it was.
Right.
That's beautiful.
Are you a nature-loving dog owner? Introducing Roaming, the premium lifestyle brand from Los Angeles that's all about embracing the beauty of nature. Roaming brings you high-quality, earth-friendly dog products crafted from renewable and natural materials. Their standout product? Bio-based and 100% compostable dog poop bags. I've been using Roaming bags for months, and let me tell you, they're a game changer. Durable, smooth, eco-friendly, and never any holes in them. These bags are good for your dog and Mother Earth. And here's the best part. Roaming has an exclusive offer for our listeners. Use code VermontDog to snag a whopping 20% off your first purchase. Sign up for their poop bag subscription and enjoy 20% off the first 3 orders. Oh, and don't miss their stunning leather leashes, proudly made right here in the USA. Ready to make your dog's world a little greener? Visit roaming.com. That's ROMNG.com. Roaming, where nature and dogs come together in perfect harmony. I think when it comes to a dog owner's awareness, and I'm guilty of it too. I think every dog owner is that every time that dog comes over, we just unknowingly just reach out and just start petting them. Do you see any positive or negatives to something like that?
Well, there on the one hand, there's an aspect of me that's kind of like, we, you and I know a lot of people in this field, a lot of trainers and behaviorists, different styles,
Sure.
and different methods, and more power to everybody. But there's sometimes where I'm just kind of like, you got to live a little, you got to
Right.
live, you got to enjoy, you got to. And so sometimes, to answer your question, like, if you're feeling, if the energy connection, if you're just mindful and present and aware and tuned in, and and you're instinctually connected to,
Yep.
to the moment, and it's like, petting the dog, no big deal. We're connecting. It's a moment.
Yeah.
It's almost like a handshake. Then yeah, but there are those moments too where it's like, all right, this dog should not be petted, and sometimes we'll do that if we're not in the moment, if we're kind of distracted or whatever, and it's just, oh yeah, hi, yeah, how are you doing? And so and that's where like meditation comes into play, is like being a tool to help us to be really instinctually in the moment, so we're responding in the highest good of everybody, ourselves, the animal, the maybe the owner of that dog. So we're like tuned in and responding in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
It is a good choice. Meditation gives us the strength to really be grounded and centered in all situations. You could be, like even to like make a quick turn out of harm's way on the highway, to like knee-jerk response, like just quickly zoom out of the way of an accident or whatever, like having that quick instinctual response, sitting in the silence or sitting in meditation strengthens that ability to make quick, good instinctual choices in that example that you gave. But Yeah, like sometimes you gotta just like
For sure.
live a little.
For sure. And sometimes that is just a feeling where you're just like, oh, that's nice, and that's that. I mean, I think
Yeah.
in pretty severe cases of, the dog's just really, it's a really bad case, something like that would probably not be great if you weren't aware of those kind of touches. But in everyday
Yeah.
life, if your dog's relatively close to who you want them to be, then that's when I say, why not? It's not hurting anything.
Yeah. But you're right. Like those other cases where the dog is clearly amped up, anxious, excited, too
Yep.
much. Be mindful of what you're giving attention and affection to,
Yeah.
and make them work for it a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe put them, draw them into a command.
Yeah. So I've talked about this with other dog trainers, and when it comes to any changes in the household, somebody moving in, somebody moving out, change in a relationship, maybe a spouse moves out, there's a death. I just talked to somebody today. She's had major construction in the house for almost a year. So there's construction workers moving or constantly in and out. And then, of course, COVID changed everything as well. When we talk about energy, because a lot of times dog owners will say, like, this came out of nowhere. And after digging, you usually find there's a reason. There always is. But in terms of energy and these major lifestyle changes, bringing a baby home is obviously a biggie as well. That's a huge shift in energy. What do you see from your experience, Michael? How much this affects the dogs, and why does it affect them so much?
Well, I feel like it affects them so much often because they are not feeling the calm, confident leadership in the choppy waters. When the
Mm,
storm kicks up, there's a lot of change, there's everything's shifting, unpredictable, there's a lot of uncertainty, and they're not feeling there is a leader, a human that is there showing them the way, like, I've got you, I got it, you don't need to worry about this, just follow my lead, and paving the way for them. And depending on the sensitivity of the dog too, some are more sensitive than others, and the sensitive ones really are going to rely even more so on that calm, confident leadership. I often feel like that's where that's the core of it, and people don't even realize in its human nature, it happens to all of us. All of us, we're moving, or the relationship's falling apart. We're deep in the throes of our emotional instability or physical instability. There's a lot going on in our head. We're all over the place. We're distracted, and we're not aware of what we're putting out there. And we're allowed to have our feelings. Say this all the time to people that I work with. Like, you're allowed. We're human. You're going to have your moments. You're going to go through it. But just when it comes to your dog, always still providing that calm, confident leadership, or letting them know energetically and through intention, as well as the hands-on guidance. Like, I got it, I got you. Like, this isn't your job to be worrying about all
right,
of this. I
right.
may not have all of the answers. I may not know like how this house is going to come together, or how I'm going to get through this breakup, or how we're going to, stop the screaming baby, but I'm working on it. I got it. And sometimes that, like, having that intention can be everything for a sensitive dog, like,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, okay, you've got, but then also plugging the dog in, and feeding the dog's needs. That's another part of it too. Maybe the dog's needs aren't being met. Maybe they're not getting walked enough, or the mental stimulation. So, like, plugging them in to new outlets, finding ways to feed their needs, to make sure that they're not like focusing on these issues that are the human issues, really.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, we're going to put you in your program. It doesn't have to be a formal program, but just whatever,
Yeah.
more walks or mental challenges.
Yeah. I heard a statement, I think it was actually this morning. I was listening to a basketball podcast, and one of the guys says, there's never any growth without change. And I think that's super hard for for some, especially when it comes to dealing with their dog that's had bad behaviors, that the change has to start with us. We can't expect our dogs to change if we don't change. I probably, full transparency, probably enjoy change too much. I always like the newness of things, to that degree. And I know there's some people that don't want any change at all, but I'm sure you come across some clients that are this way, Michael. What's kind of your advice to them if they're afraid of change and afraid of that growth?
Well, I'll always tell people, this is so common. I'll always say that first of all, it's normal. We get into, patterns. Patterns keep us safe. We
Mm,
like patterns. We like expectations. We like the patterns contain us, and we like to know what's coming. But when we expand beyond the patterns, beyond those, limiting boundaries, that's where the growth really happens. And once you expand beyond those patterns and break the patterns, really, you're going to up level and just surrender to that flow, be open to it, because yeah, that's where the real growth, learning, and fulfillment is, when you allow yourself to expand beyond your comfort zones. And most people know that they'll say like, okay, yeah, I there was a time I didn't want to go. I just didn't want to go to that event. I just didn't want to go. I didn't want to go out of my comfort zone. I
yeah.
didn't want to be around people. And then they went and they're like, it ended up being really great. And I ended up meeting this business contact, and it shifted everything in my life. And if I didn't go to that place, I wouldn't have met that person. I wouldn't be where I am now. So also identifying for people, look back in your life,
Mm,
and when did you just expand beyond your comfort zone and it lead to something good? Now, there are times where we take a chance and things don't work out. And so
sure.
that can create I often will refer to this as like the inner goblin or gremlin that is created within ourselves when we've been hurt, or when we have failed, when something didn't work out, a lot of times in our youth or when your childhood or when we were young, and an imprint is created where
Yeah.
we are like, okay, that didn't work out. I'm not doing that again. I'm not gonna go there. And so it's like this gremlin or goblin, Gollum, that's like, you don't want to do that. Stay home. Don't expand beyond your patterns, your comfort zone. Stay safe. And it's like this inner voice that is there telling us to not do anything as a way of protecting us. So I'll say that this is a practice of like, imagine, it's a visualization practice of imagining that gremlin, goblin, whatever, however it appears to you, coming, like sitting across the table from you, and you're listening to it, and you're asking it what all of its fears are. Why is it doing what it's doing? Why is it hesitant in encouraging you to expand beyond your comfort zone? Listen to it, thank it, bless it, and say thank you, but I'm a different person today than I was when you were born within me. So rather than trying to keep me safe, your job is to go out and find me new opportunities, or to connect me with new people, or to bring me more abundance and fulfillment. You're going to be my runner. So
Mm,
go work on my behalf that way. And sometimes, people will even like hug the gremlin, goblin, hug them, embrace it, give it love. And that can like shift that inner voice and shift that imprint within ourselves to just diffuse that like resistance that's
wow.
keeping us from like stepping out there. So that's like a little, tip that an exercise I often give people.
Yeah. That's where the mindfulness comes in too, of listening to that inner voice too, because that becomes a pattern. That inner voice can turn negative and it can become the pattern. And then you're down in the trenches with a dark cloud over you, looking like Pigpen before you know it, right? I mean, I can see it on people's faces when they walk in. They're so dejected, they're frustrated with their dogs, and then everything's wrong. And Michael, I have to tell you, honestly, from a dog trainer's perspective, this is what I wish there was more of out there for beginner dog trainers, is how to work with clients. Because
Mhm.
I mean, I'm 46 years old, so I have some life experience here. There's a lot of trainers that are very, very young that are coming out that are, 22, 23, 24 years old. And I don't know of any courses that are teaching people how to work with clients that are emotional or talking about euthanasia or rehoming or whatnot. This is the awareness part that I wish there was more of out there. So are you seeing anything? Is there anything in your network of world that's happening like that for dog trainers?
Not a lot. Well, and that's a big part of my work actually, is working with people, not just dog trainers, but also people who just are dog lovers or owners, helping them to be mindful and aware of their energy and sensitive, and to listen, to ask questions, and but sometimes there are those. I was just as you were talking about that, I was thinking many years ago I shadowed Colleen Steckloff.
Oh yeah.
Who is an amazing dog trainer behavior. She was Cesar Millan's head trainer for many years.
Yep. I interviewed her on this podcast a couple of years ago.
She's amazing. And I spent a week with her and following her around, and went into she had back-to-back sessions all over LA. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, back to back all over, really intense cases. She's the trainer that people often call as a last resort. And we would walk in, and she's very she can be really tough and strong when she needs to be. And she's also very sensitive and empathic as well. And we would walk into people's homes, and she was so good. She is so good, but back then she was so good at listening and adjusting her energy and frequency to meet them where they were at, and to give them the opportunity to share and to release it. And she would adjust and acclimate to them, and very empathic. And then step forward, okay, this is what you need. And it wasn't forceful. It wasn't intense. And these would be sometimes really intense, aggressive, reactive, aggressive dogs that were killing other dogs and stuff like that. And she would come in and was calm, confident, empathic, sensitive. And I learned a lot from her firsthand on just coming in with an open heart, but also giving guidance and having that sensitivity. So I guess my point in bringing that up is I would encourage young dog trainers too to seek out experienced dog trainers that are out in the field and that are really connecting with people at that level and shadow them. And not to necessarily do the hands-on, go with, shadow work sometimes can be doing hands-on with the mentor, but just more to observe how they're engaging and interacting, and maybe doing it with a lot of different trainers. So you're getting an idea of the spectrum of ways to help people. And maybe a person, you could go out and be I just shadowed this trainer and they did everything I would not do, or they were way too harsh.
Yes.
Or they were and sometimes, a person might be shadowing a trainer mentor and is seeing the response. Talk about reading energy. It's okay, this trainer and these people, the people clearly were not jiving with this trainer at all. And the trainer wasn't picking up on it.
Yeah.
And the trainer was being kind of intense or whatever. And the apprentice mentee is okay, but you learn from that too. All right, I don't want to be that. I would rather be this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's funny you say that. So I just finished up a shadow program. I had a couple students last week, and I'm a big believer of just sitting in on the lessons and just, we'll do a little leash handling on the side. But so I think I had 18 lessons throughout the week that they just got to sit in on and we got on this subject of being aware of their emotions and their struggles, and even for 5 seconds, put yourself in their shoes so they understand, and so you understand what's truly happening. Because it's easy for us to just kind of sit in our chair like a throne and be yeah, okay, I know that's happening and this needs to be done. But also, and I think that's where we have to be for a moment, because we don't want to also soak up all that the negative energy and everything's wrong. But I think for a moment we have to be on that frequency with them to understand where they're coming from. At least that's the way that I look at it, because I sometimes feel it in my chest when they start explaining things, and I'm just kind of like, whew, I need to take a deep breath and kind of work through that, because it can get pretty heavy sometimes. But that's where I'll be honest. I'm going to toot my horn. I feel like I'm good at that kind of thing, but it's not. It's through experience. I've worked in hotels. I've worked at golf clubs. Been training. I've been around customers and guests and golfers and dog owners a lot. So if you're not recognizing things by now, I should be doing something else. But the awareness of their emotions is something that's got to be right on the forefront of everything.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of times people get into dog training because they'll say, or dog walking or boarding or whatever, or daycare work. And they're like, oh, I don't like people.
Oh, I know. Oh my gosh, that drives me insane.
And it's like, okay, well, that's great, but that's the key to helping a dog is through the person, and helping the person and having that awareness, that sensitivity to feel them, to understand their perspective, to be objective and to listen, and to be flexible, because one way isn't going to work for everybody. And yeah, that's so, like, the more exposure to people, the better. And sometimes there are going to be mistakes or things
Sure.
won't, failures or whatever, but that's another place where you grow the most too, is from the failures.
Yes. So one last subject I want to talk about is stress. Stress, obviously, we know from a human perspective can lead to disease and mental health, that kind of thing. Also, I look at stress when it comes to dogs, and I think it's fair to say that there's both a negative stress and a positive stress. We just talked about change. We know for human perspective, we can look ahead and know change is coming, or we need to change, and we can think about the future. To a dog, I think it's safe to say they may not understand the future, and that the stress that they're going through now, and I'm not talking about like really stressing out your dog, but sometimes learning can be stressful to a dog as it pertains to growth. So touch on that for me, Michael, because I'm sure you've seen situations where there is some positive stress that whether a dog or a human's going through, and what can come from that.
Positive stress. So I'm thinking about, like, again, like imprints, like there could be some sort of reactivity with a dog at, like, let's say a visitor came into a person's home and there was a nervous reactivity where the dog nipped at the person's feet or rear end or whatever, and then like the person freaked out and the owner freaked out, and then so now every time somebody comes in, there's this imprint there,
that chain reaction.
Chain reaction, and so that's stressful. But then, in order to erase that imprint, it's like you have to recreate that situation and then guide the dog and the human and the visitor through it to a calm surrender state where you're ending it on a calm note, and shifting that so different choices are made. And so it's going to be stressful for that dog to be rehabilitated, really, for everybody to be rehabilitated. Right. The human's going to be like, I don't want to have somebody come in, and the dog trainer could be like, all right, well, we need to recreate this. So this is what we're doing. Take a deep breath. We're in the process of shifting this. The person's going to be stressed. The dog is going to be stressed.
Yes.
And maybe the visitor too. But that is good stress because you're guiding them. There's the fight, flight, avoid, surrender. It might be fight mode or flight mode. Everybody's trying to get out of there, maybe avoid the situation, but you need to guide them through those stages to get to the surrender state. And it can be a bit stressful to get to that surrender state. But when you get there, the reward is that new calm imprint of like, oh, like bringing the dog to calm in the presence of that visitor. And then the dog is like, oh, well, this visitor isn't so, wasn't that big of a deal. And the human's like, oh, wow, we're having a good calm moment. And that maybe that guest is like, oh, wow, this is good. So then you start practicing that. And it could be stressful every time you do it for a bit, but you start building that new imprint. And so you're getting to the big reward of accepting the flow of guests coming in and out of the house and feeling confident and safe and, easy about that whole experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
of like
totally.
Good stress.
Yeah, it totally does. What I tell my clients is positive stress is like taking your driver's test or your first day at school, because taking your driver's test is, man, if I pass this thing, it's stressful now, but if I pass this, I get to drive the car around, I get to go see my friends, and but we can rationalize the future component of that, where dogs, as far as we know, can't. So it's a little harder on them, but and it's not that we as trainers have to put dogs through stress every day by any means necessary. I mean, if we can go without it, then so be it. But
right.
That's kind of my take on it. So yeah, you totally answered that question, because there is a component of trying to work through everything to achieve what you want. And then I always tell people, just soak that part of it in. This is what this feels like. This is what it's supposed to look like. Because you want to know what it truly, truly feels like. So, all right, one last question for you, and then I'll let you get. How can a dog owner be better for their dogs?
Live in the moment and provide that leadership. Be the leader. Be the calm, confident leader. Live in the moment. Breathe. Enjoy. Appreciate. Soak it in.
Yeah.
Because often we're trying to fix things or correct things, or we're thinking about the goal, the future. How are we going to get there? When is it going to be okay? Or where are we going? Or sometimes it could be like when a dog is older, like the clock is ticking. The clock is ticking, and what's it going to be like when my dog isn't here anymore? And so the best thing you can do is just be in the moment with them and love it and appreciate it and celebrate it and provide it and provide it through that calm, confident, clear intention and leadership.
Yep. That's great. That is great. If you'd like to know more about Michael, you can look him up online. His website is michaelrburke.com. He's based out of California, but I'm sure you are doing a ton of virtual sessions, correct?
Yeah, I work with people all over the world.
That's amazing. What a great time for us to be in for that right now, right? I mean...
Yeah. Thank God for Zoom and FaceTime and all of Skype.
Yes, it makes it a lot easier. Thank you so much for your time, Michael. I certainly appreciate it. I've been wanting to... I mean, we spoke a couple of years ago about doing this, and I'm glad we did. You got I love a lot of your terminology here that I may or may not share with my clients. Because it's you hit there's a lot of like little light bulb things that went off for me, so I truly appreciate it.
Oh, well, I'm honored to be here, and I it was so great connecting and spending time with you, as always.
Thank you so much, Michael. I'm sure we'll be in touch.
All right, sounds great. Thanks again.
Well, listen, baby, you can keep your pedigree family. Rescue dog is through with you.